Starfire Protocol is the new hotness for Warlocks, thanks to some pretty sizable changes coming into the Edge of Fate. Starfire's grenade generation nerf from a while back got reverted, with the generation from weapon damage now back at 5% per tick, up from its previous 2.5%. Grenade energy from Final Blows did get nerfed down to 15% per kill, it's down from 20, but the most relevant change here is that Radiant weapon damage now counts as empowered weapon damage for Starfire Protocol. When combined with a certain artifact perk, this change becomes much more substantial than you might realize, but we're not at that part of the video yet. To absolutely nobody's surprise, today we are building around Verity's Brow. Okay, we're actually building around Starfire Protocol. The build has one goal, and that is to throw grenades and then get more of them. Starfire does make some options non-negotiable for our subclass, so it's not exactly the most flexible, but there is still some room for choice to be had. Of those non-negotiables, one of them is Empowering Rift. While the exotic does work off of Radiant alone, it's not nearly consistent enough to just ditch Empress, since you will need it eventually. Even less negotiable is our grenade, since Starfire literally does nothing if you're not on fusion grenades, so don't even think about doing anything else. Your melee ability is wide open though. I've gone for Celestial Fire since I prefer the ability to apply Scorch from a distance, but Incinerator Snap is a perfectly valid choice here as well. For our aspects, anything other than Touch of Flame is a throw pick. Our whole game plan is to throw grenades, and passing up what is basically double fusion grenade damage is not even worth entertaining. Our second aspect is technically flexible, but I can't really find myself justifying anything other than Hellion. Heat Rises is pretty antithetical to the build since we mostly want to be throwing our grenades instead of eating them. And Heat Rises also tends to lend itself to a more mobile playstyle, and Starfire is pretty positionally based, so it's not the greatest option. Icarus Dash doesn't have the same grenade eating problem, but it suffers from the problem that it wants to be in a more mobile playstyle, and Starfire doesn't really mesh with being on the move. Hellion isn't nearly as flashy as the other two, but it meshes damn near perfectly with the build. We're going to be using our class ability a good chunk of the time anyway, so it's very feasible to just have it up 100% of the time. On top of that, Hellion is just kind of good right now. It's free Scorch, it does a good amount of damage, and it's basically zero effort for what it offers. Our fragments are where things get a lot more flexible. Resolve is pretty much a lock since you're going to be killing stuff with grenades all the time, and serves as the main method of survivability. Empyrean is great for keeping Radiant uptime high, and if you spec for Resto, it'll keep that rolling too, though with Resolve, I don't think you really need Resto that much. Torches is great for on-demand Radiant, though with the artifact right now, it's maybe not as necessary. Once this artifact rotates out, I would definitely slot this in if you don't have another plan to get Radiant, but I keep it in just because getting Radiant elsewise can be inconsistent, and this is just an easy way to get it. And after that, the last slot is pretty much wide open for whatever you want. I'm on Char for spreading Scorch to larger groups, and it bumps the grenade stats slightly if you care about that, which I do. Ashes is good if you just want to get more Scorch stacks, Solace is good for more Radiant uptime, and those are just a few that I would recommend. Again, I'm on Char because I just want to watch the world burn, but it's really up to you. Finally, we do have to pick a super, and for once, we're not on Song of Flame. I know that a lot of people have been speccing Song of Flame in this build, but when I asked John Bungie where my fusion grenade went after popping super, he kind of just handed me a pigeon. So I guess I gotta take care of this thing now. Anyway, to absolutely nobody's surprise, we are on Well of Radiance instead. Not only does Well of Radiance count as being empowered for Starfire purposes, it's a great tool for taking and holding space in a room, and is also great for not dying, which I think is something we can all agree is pretty good. It also sets up some Radiant once it runs out, which means you still have some lenience if you find yourself without cooldowns come the time that Well of Radiance is up. For our stats, it's pretty much a no-brainer that we just booked it to 200 grenade. We're throwing grenades pretty much all the time, and there's no way you're gonna catch me giving up a 65% boost to grenade damage. Super to 100 is our next best choice, both because Grenadier Armor kind of forces us into it, and because Well of Radiance is just that good for this build. Everything else kind of just doesn't really matter. If your setup rolls into it or you've got some time on your hands, farm for some tertiary melee spikes on Grenadier armor or better melee cooldowns, but you really don't need it too much. And then past that, all our mods are just grenade-based. Ashes to assets in the helmets, along with some orb gen and some ammo, double firepower and impact induction in the arms, triple resist, invigoration, and better already with the scav in the legs, and finally Reaper for more orbs, since we are going to be using our class ability a lot. On top of that, we've got our standard special finisher, and I've been leaning a lot towards Proximity Ward lately, since it lets you safely finish your stuff you otherwise might not be able to. The artifact isn't too spicy this time around. It does have some very good general solar stuff in there, but Fever and Chill is particularly potent with this build, since it grants very easy access to Radiant, which synergizes perfectly with this build. All you need is a solar weapon. I'm using a Yeartide Apex from Solstice. If you happen to have a No Survivors from Rite of the Nine kicking around in your vault, that's a good option too. Zowlies from King's Fall is good. And if you want to use an exotic, Sunshot is great right now. But pretty much any solar weapon is going to work. This also pairs perfectly with Radiant Shrapnel, since you're going to be Radiant a good amount of the time, meaning proccing it is basically zero effort. In terms of how you actually play the build, well, it's a pretty standard Starfire setup. If you're not familiar with how that plays, here's the rundown. The goal is to alternate between placing Empowering Rifts or getting Radiant, to generate an insane amount of grenade energy, which then refreshes your Rift on a kill, and you just loop it around from there. Wall of Radiance is best popped when you're expecting to either take a large influx of damage, or you just expect to stay in one area for long enough for it to be relevant. Just keep in mind, Well does not make you immune like it used to. You absolutely can still die from within it, so don't get complacent, still put it where there's some cover. In addition, you absolutely can and should throw down your Rift within your Well. The two don't stack, but Hellion is good enough, and Rift's plentiful enough, that you can safely huck it down just for Hellion value. In terms of when and what to throw your grenade at, the answer is whenever you have it and anything that moves, excluding your teammates, because Fusion Grenade can stick to your teammates, and if they ever stick next to you when it blows up, it will end poorly for you, which leads to my next point about keeping your distance. Fusion Grenade can do self-damage, and with Touch of Flame, all it takes is one enemy deciding they want to run at you with a Fusion Grenade stuck to them to ruin their day, and also probably kill you. You don't need to be in sniper distance or anything crazy like that, just acknowledge that you're playing with explosives and should distance yourself accordingly. On the off chance you do find yourself with no cooldowns, your number one priority is to get a cooldown back and reset the loop. With the artifact we have, it's not too difficult since you get Radiant just by hitting your shots with a solar weapon, but once the artifact rotates, that might be a taller ask. Outside of that, just make sure you're actually killing stuff with your fusion grenades if you're not running for pure DPS in a raid or dungeon setting, just to make sure you actually get your Rift back. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This is one of the many builds I hope to go over in the coming weeks, although Ash and Iron is next Tuesday, so stay tuned for more of those. If you've got some builds you think I should go over, leave them in the comments and I'll take a look at them. If you're looking for more direct feedback on your builds, my community Discord is a great place to do it. Got plenty of people willing to help out, whether that's just running portal activities or giving your build a complete overhaul. I'm also pretty active in there, so if you want to interact with me more directly, that's the best way to do it. We will be back in next week with hopefully another build video, though I do have a pretty big backlog, so I'm going to be working some projects off of that next week. Regardless, I will see you in the next one. Bye for now!